Well, hello there. My name is Dave Belau. Happy New Year to everybody. I want to welcome you to this new edition of News and Views broadcast by Access LaPorte County on Public TV Channel 99. We are a weekly public opinion program addressing local, state, national topics and issues of interest to the Michigan City and surrounding areas. Opinions are the views and the responsibilities of those making the comments and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of this program or its co-producers. We will adhere to broadcast rules. But absolutely no one's First Amendment rights of freedom of speech or freedom of the press will be either muzzled nor denied. Any unauthorized use of the accounts, descriptions, and events of this program without the express written consent of Larry Curley or Schmo is strictly prohibited. We hope you enjoy the program, the discussion, and any participants. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't been driving around the streets lately, there is a parcel of land in the city of Michigan City that a week ago was tree-lined and trees all over the place, and it was just north of Barker Woods, on Barker Ave, that area, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? If you drive by today, it's a blighted area. No trees, no nothing. Trees have all disappeared. There's a big pile of sand out there, and so 20 acres of the city of Michigan City has been obliterated over the Christmas holiday season. I wonder why that happened. Well, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, tree board of Michigan City. We have a tree board. And according to the tree board and the new arborist, according to them, any tree with a diameter of 8 inches or so in diameter has to pay a fee to be cut down. Well, that 20 acres of ground had a lot of 8-inch trees. In fact, I drove by today and I saw some 20-inch logs that they logged out of that property. We've got a tree board. We've got designation as a tree city. We've got arborists. We've got these arborists going around the community with their tape measure, identifying the diameter of specific trees on individuals' personal property. Personal property, personal lot. In my case, I got 1 3/4 acres. Now, they haven't been there because I don't believe I'd let them on my property. But the fact of the matter is, never mistake the power of influence, especially here in Michigan City. If you know someone, you can get 20 acres cleared over the Christmas holidays under the darkness of night. 20 acres have been cleared for a future development. Now, I support the future development, but there are plenty vacant areas within the 25 square miles of Michigan City that could have been utilized. A building could have been rehabbed. But because of influence and because of powers to be, 20 acres was obliterated here in the city of Michigan City. Now, what we have here is we got a development just on Royal Road over here that their project is being held up because of the size of the trees on their property. Who's hypocritical in this community? It doesn't make sense to me. I'm for progress. But do you have to obliterate, do you have to defoliage 20 acres of ground to build maybe a 2,000 or 10,000 square foot building? It doesn't make sense to me. But that's where Michigan City is going. So the people who have the power to negotiate, I point at City Hall. We've got a building commissioner that will raise holy hell because you got junk in your yard. But you can obliterate 20 acres of stable growth. Do you realize what those trees do for our environment? I really take offense to it. I'm for progress. All right? But some of those trees, some of those 20-inch trees that they logged out of that property that I saw today on a trailer being hauled out of there, some of those trees could have made a park environment back on the entire 20 acres. But what we've got is we've got now, the city of Michigan City is what, 25 square miles of land? And we've got 20 acres of ground that has basically been deforested for a building that we have vacant buildings within the community outside the realm of go down south on Ohio Street. You can see vacant buildings that could have been utilized, that have ample parking and everything else. I'm just saying it's who you know in this town. And again, if this town is to progress, then the next contractor that wants to come to this town and build something, that specific deterrent of the size of trees on his property is a moot point. And he could tell the building administrator or all where to shove it. That's all I have to say.
I believe the code, because I've done some developments, I believe the code does protect trees, but it protects specific trees. There are garbage trees, and I shouldn't say garbage. There are invasive trees that are not good. They do protect, I believe they protect some oak trees, some maple trees, some walnut trees, but typically the trees you see in open land and open plot are native sassafras, cottonwood, pine. So they are allowed to take those out. And then some of the trees good trees, if you have good trees left, they are allowed to take those out if they plant new trees because, and I'm not an arborist, but I've spent enough time around trees to understand. I stayed at Holiday Inn Express. I don't know. No, I understand if you have a forest of trees, and I work with architects and developers all the time, and they try to, and bless their hearts, they try to save trees. It never works because you have a forest of trees, and as the winds blow against the trees, the outside trees grew up stronger and the inside trees don't have the strength. So when you take the trees out and you leave some of these beautiful trees in the middle, they just fall over and the wind blows them off and deroots them and destroys homes. So developers typically might save 3% of the trees, 5% of the trees. A good tree, a good strong oak tree, that is a good thing to keep. But typically they'll plant new trees that grow up stronger. It might take them 20, 30 years, but they grow up stronger and you have nice trees that can handle the wind and the elements. So I doubt that's, maybe they did or maybe they didn't, but the developments I've been through the city, not with this administration, but other administrations, many administrations, they're pretty persnickety about the trees when we had to locate every tree and the type of tree and where it was before we tore it down, because when I'm walking in the woods, and then we have the problem with the ash borer. I was in the woods 2 weeks ago in a South County, beautiful woods, broke my heart because 80% of them are laying down dead, falling apart because the ash borer or the Japanese beetle just destroyed them. It decimated the forest. It's just gone. So those are the things they're looking for. The arborist has a very hard job because in my opinion, I like development too, but it's my ground. And who did this? Mr. T, I believe, in Oak Forest bought some ground, and he tore all the trees down, and Oak Forest wanted to sue him because he tore the trees down. He took them to court. He says, no, they're my trees. If you want to keep them, you pay for them. But they're my trees. If I'm cutting them down, I'm cutting them down. If you want to buy the land, you can buy the land. So I don't know what went on, and I don't even know the spot you're talking about, but I probably would have drove by and saw that. It's no fun seeing a development just wipe out everything. It kind of breaks your heart.
And the issue at hand is the growth potential of the community. What we have is we have these individuals in City Hall putting up roadblocks for new construction, new development for the little guy. The little guy wants to make a buck.
Oh, I agree 100%.
The little guy has thousands of roadblocks put in his way. And he is, again, going back to what I experienced of this gated community out here on Royal Road, the little guy has to jump through 101,000 hoops just to get half of his property approved for development.
Well, the big guy does too. It's just they have more money. It's the same improvement and the same rules and the same administrative. I don't like it one bit. But the little guy can't afford to spend $100,000 on engineering and 6 months or a year to wait. But the big guy, they don't care. They just pour money in it. They'll pour $1 million at it. They just, and we've had that discussion off the air that if you're going to make anybody pay $1 million to run through administrative hoops, isn't that a waste of money? I don't care if it's a little guy or a big guy. Couldn't they take that $1 million and put it into the building instead of administrative garbage?
Well, the point that I want to make is this 20-acre parcel has been obliterated for a 200,000 square foot building. That doesn't make sense, people. You could have retained 3/4 of that property in a semi-wooded area and built the 200,000 square foot building on and still have land left over. I seen tulips grow on that property.
Yeah, tulip state tree.
I seen flowers. When the spring breaks, you see crocuses. You see stuff growing on that property. The property is just north of Barker Woods, and that tells me that it's been a tree standing plot of ground for quite a few years here in Michigan City.
You make a good point. So these developers have to tear down everything on their site because they have to put in an inordinate amount of stormwater. Maybe if the city would trade them some land somewhere else with the stormwater, they could have left a grove of trees instead of tearing it all and digging a big hole. Because that's the rules, and that's what we get stuck with.
Well, and again, when a small developer goes to the city to construct a parcel of something on some acreage that he or she owns, he's drugged through the ringer. And he's told, you can't do this and you can't do that, and you can't do this and you can't do that. Okay, I'll agree. Okay? But in the same vein, a big individual can come in a dark of night and obliterate 20 acres of ground in Michigan City with no recourse?
I'm sure they got permits.
I would agree that they got permits.
Well, then who was the permitting agency? Schuyler York?
Let's talk about some of those old buildings. Because if I'm a developer and I'm looking at some of those old buildings, many of them potentially will have asbestos and other types of environmental problems involved. They don't want to get involved with it. They don't own it, so they go someplace else. Those buildings need to come down, and they need to come down done professionally so that you get the environmental problems taken care of at the same time. This is something the city is going to have to look into, and how do we get this done?
Correct.
We've got buku of them around. What you're asking is that a developer go in there and take care of this on his or her own. That's not going to happen.
No, what I'm asking is this: what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If the little guy has roadblocks put in front of him or her.
You were talking about buildings in Michigan City.
No, I'm talking about basically the vacant land. The vacant land that they obliterated. If the little guy has to jump through months and months and months and months of roadblocks, and in the dark of night, the last week of the year and the first week of 2025, 20 acres of ground has been obliterated. Who's the hypocrite talking? Am I the hypocrite that's bringing this point to light? I'm just saying, let's be fair across the board.
Well, if you're going to be fair across the board, many of these large corporations, they come in there with architects, construction companies.
A lot of money, a lot of talent, a lot of professional licenses.
Yeah.
They just pour money at it.
And
I
they
mean,
go through,
pour money at it.
They go through the rules and regulations.
Yep.
Well,
The little guy don't have that hundreds of $200,000, $300,000 to pour money at it.
Except the little guy.
We have to consider the abilities of the little individual to do that type of work. Now, if you've got somebody who's been in the construction business for quite some time, understands the rules, knows what he or she has to do, I'm all for you. If we got some guy that just moves in and says, I'm going to put this up, doesn't know the rules and regulations, that can get us into all kinds of trouble.
The little guy is a taxpayer. He pays his taxes, whether there's been roadblocks for years putting in front of him for creating housing developments in this community. But the big guy can come in and eradicate 20 acres of ground for a not-for-profit entity. I don't think that's right. That is taking this property off of the tax rolls for infinity. That is not correct.
Well, you'd have to find out who owns the property, but you can go from there and see it, you know, how that came about. But I have a feeling if this is a not-for-profit entity, they probably have an architect and a construction company. And so theoretically, they know how to follow the rules.
And it's one of the biggest.
Then maybe we got to change the rules.
And it's one of the biggest construction companies in the city of Michigan City that's been here for years.
If it's who I'm thinking of.
Don't have to say because everyone knows who you're talking about.
Everybody knows who I'm talking about. Again, I'm just looking for clarity. I'm just looking for transparency. If I try to do something in a third of my, and I got a third acre, if I wanted to build something in a third of my acre, build another house, which it could be built, but I don't want to do that. If I wanted to do that, I'd have to jump through hoops.
The same hoops the big guy does.
The same hoops the
The
big
$1 million
guy.
hoops. Sorry.
And there'll be
Little or big.
a deterrent after deterrent after deterrent because I don't know the proper way to go. But this entity can come in and wipe out 20 acres of trees in the city of Michigan City and log out, because I saw these logs sitting on this trailer being trucked off.
They may have made money on those
They
logs.
probably had to pay because not many people are burning wood anymore. My
No,
understanding.
I mean, these logs, there were like 6 logs
I
that were about
understand
this
the
size.
loggers they have a hard time even giving stuff away. No one wants it unless it's a really good tree, an oak tree, a walnut tree.
Well, we just had a survey by the tree board to survey all of the available trees in the community. I just wonder if the tree board actually went out to this 20 acres of property and identified what were the trees that were growing on that property. I doubt it, because not too many people knew about it.
Well, that's redevelopment.
That's redevelopment.
So redevelopment always costs probably double what development costs. So you want to take an old building, maybe that's what we should be using redevelopment money for, tearing down old buildings to get ready for development. Or you go
Hey,
to a new
fantastic.
spot.
I was thinking the same thing.
A new spot is easy for development because there's no building to tear down. There's nothing there I have to worry about.
And you don't have to worry about what's in the
You don't have
ground.
to worry about some contaminants in the ground.
I support the non-for-profit entity that is making this project happen. But this non-for-profit entity is not building a building that encompasses the entire 20 acres of ground. That's, you know, I drove back, good black soil. You know, once the trees disappeared, a lot of good black soil. They aerated the ground. I mean, it really looks pretty good back there for something on black soil to grow, but maybe they may come in and remove that topsoil, you know, for movement someplace else. The fact of the matter is, I'm for development in Michigan City, but let's make it fair for everyone, not just for a select few who have deep pockets.
Yep.
Now to the other side of Michigan City. We have some great developments coming along that will be a huge positive for this community. One of them is a project known as SOLA, or SOLA. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that, but most of us refer to it as the You Are Beautiful site.
You Are
It looks
Beautiful.
like, in fact, they have got this thing underway. They seem to know what they're doing, and they're proposing 188 condos for this particular facility, 239 room hotel, 25,000 square feet for retail space and a restaurant. This will be a huge positive for Michigan City. I did some calculations and came up with the fact that at a very minimum, at retail value of what this is going to be worth, I got about $275 million. I think I'm probably undervalued for a number of reasons, but this is an outstanding project, and we certainly want to see that it goes through and goes through properly. It is in a very important part of our community, and done properly, it will be a positive addition.
Just to add that, what the Redevelopment Commission threw around, it was a $300 million project. That's what their attorney made reference to.
Yeah, well, now, remember, they had access to some stuff that I didn't.
So you're
But-
pretty close.
Yeah, well, I couldn't value the parking spaces because I wasn't sure if they're going to deed them to the condo owners or how they're going to do that, so I just left that blank. And the other one I had was a small situation, and I'm trying to think of it, that I just left blank also. because I didn't know what they were gonna use that for. So
So-
if they're at 300 million, I'm at 200.
Yeah, that verbiage came from their attorney, Cernick.
Cernick.
Sirnick. Well, he's the attorney for the redevelopment
Yeah.
commission.
So if they have a $300 million project, the true tax value, we looked it up before the show, that Blue Chip, I think, is $82 million in tax value. This is not appraised value, this is true tax value. So 2% of that, if their campus is probably not the same as Blue Chip. Blue Chip's got 2 hotels, a casino, restaurants, parking garage, parking spots. They're probably a bigger area, landmass. So let's say they get $50 million true tax value. That's $1 million a year. And just when you started talking about that, I started remembering that they want a new city hall. So that city hall, if I remember correctly, was $30 million. Now today's cost is probably $50 million. So $1 million a year in redevelopment can be bonded out for a new city hall of $50 million somewhere. I don't know. I have no inside game here. I don't run in those circles, so I don't know. But I just remember the news about a new city hall was going to cost $30 million the same time after we did the police station. So I guess get ready, folks, because that's the next thing you're going to hear is we want a new city hall and it's going to cost $50 million. There's my prediction for 2025. Because the redevelopment is going to get that money whenever it's developed. That in a TIF district, the redevelopment will get those funds above the present tax ratio, which I pulled up is what, $400,000? Well, $200,000 per year right now in tax value. So it's going to go from $200,000 and 0.8% to $50 million, and the redevelopment gets that difference. And that's the way I understand it. So I bet you they're going to get a bond for $30 million and build a new city hall, because the other half of that block is probably going to go to another development. There's my guess.
You've got that vacant land on the east side of that development, a lot of it, the old hospital land. That land also had some other facilities on it at one time. It's pretty barren there. I would think somebody might be looking at that also.
Maybe that's the new city hall.
That's possible.
And then they'll get rid of the city hall we have, because when they built City Hall, the 60s?
Yeah.
So we'll get rid of
Late
that
60s.
building.
Well, late 60s, early 70s.
Because honestly, I don't want to pay $50 million for a city hall or $30 million or any million, but that land is not best utilized as city hall. That land would be better utilized as a hotel or some development of something way better.
Another solar project.
Yeah, another solar project. That's what that land, that whole north end needs to be that. You know, in my opinion, City Hall we should give $30 million or $20 million to the school district and take the Elston complex, put $10 million, fix it, and then all the departments could be over in that complex, and we could keep the YMCA, and we could keep the AK Smith Center, and that would be in the center of town, and that's where people, the constituents, the voters, the landowners could go to the Elston campus, which would be a great place for City Hall. Centralized, good location. The school would get their $20 million that they're losing out of redevelopment funds, because we would pay them for the high school campus, the old high school campus, and everyone would be happy.
A good possibility.
But we won't. We'll build a $50 million new facility. That's my prediction.
Now, I have one small little item that I'd like to talk about. It involves the fact that when you go out on one of the charter boats and catch fish, charter boat captains will basically clean them for you, fillet them, you're set to go.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice if you could take those fish, or the charter boat captain could arrange to have those fish picked up, taken to a restaurant, and have them for you that night. You come in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they'll have them ready for you at 8 o'clock at night. We need to figure out, how do we arrange something like that? Because as I understand it, the problem is in the county health department.
Yeah, I would get the state health department to take control, but I thought a law was passed 2 years ago that people have small operations in their home, and it was illegal because you don't have the commercial kitchen and the health department. But I thought that Indiana allowed people to do some baked of home goods or a small retail environment into their home, that they could make things and sell things out of their home. And I thought the health department had the ability to approve that, which I would hope to go to charter boats. Side note is, in my time in St. Louis, I had friends, and they brought me gigging for frogs. And these are these big frogs, the big frogs. And we'd catch frog legs. We'd go out in the creek, the Dardenne Creek and the creeks out of the Missouri River and the Mississippi River, and we'd catch frogs at night. And they'd flashlight on, they'd just pick the frog up and they'd put them in a box. They would sell them to the restaurants down on Laclede's Landing in St. Louis, the high-cost restaurants. They would sell their frogs for frog legs. So that's what they did. They caught frogs, they drove them down to downtown St. Louis and sold them.
I used to do that around here, but go ahead.
Yeah, and they made pretty good money, and they got to go out, they called it gigging for frogs. I thought it was kind of crazy, and I went with them. I thought it was kind of fun. It's pretty cool.
Now, let me interject a little bit. When I was a director of the Intercity Baseball League, of which the park department conveniently asked us to leave, so we left. And we built our own facility on grounds in front of the Indiana State Prison.
Maybe that's City Hall.
Huh?
Maybe that ground is City Hall.
We had a concession stand there, ladies and gentlemen, that we sold brats and other incidentals and pops and so on. And some individual turned us into the health department. and you know what we told the health department? We told the health department where to sit on it. Because state property, the health department has no jurisdiction on state-owned land. That's according to their rules and regulations. Going back to the fish and maintaining the fish, if a fisherman caught a fish on state property, state-owned land, which is Lake Michigan, somebody, if he had a boat, if a boat was trailing his boat that cooked and cleaned fish, could cook and clean those fish on Lake Michigan and serve it as a restaurant, and the state health department has no jurisdiction over a project being produced on state-owned land. That's the law.
Except you'd have to get a restaurant to go along with it, and that.
Well, that's true. Yeah. That's true. But there's ways. You're talking about putting roadblocks in a way for a developer to remove an 8-inch tree because he wants to build a house. Well, here's a way to circumvent the issue pertaining to an individual catching even perch.
See, I'm just old enough to remember the fisheries where they bring fish back, and you can go buy them.
Yeah.
Go down there, East Street, Ritter's
Fish Market.
You go down there and you can buy fresh fish right off the boat, right there.
Yeah. So again, the health department, has jurisdiction over restaurants and so on city-owned land.
We need to find out, and somebody in the city needs to find out, because it would be really nice for our tourist industry.
Sure would.
To be able to do that, or maybe the Tourist Bureau needs to find out how you talk to the county health department to get these regulations set up so that it could be done.
I'm sure there's 3 or 4 or 10 restaurants who would buy it.
Well, again,
the fish. And they can charge $2 under what they charge for the fish, and hell, they'd make all kinds of money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there are rules on the books in favor of the little guy, but the little guy doesn't take the time to do the research. I found a lot of possibilities out there. And again, going back to the state could not control the usage of our concession stand because it was on state property, state-owned property.
Well, I was hoping you watched the redevelopment district, because I only caught a blurb of they are going to do some building improvement, a private person on 7th Street in Franklin. And it was like a $3 million project, and the redevelopment district was going to, match $445,000 or something like that downtown. And I'm for development. I have my hesitancy about redevelopment, but as a good business, I would think the redevelopment, if this project was $3 million and they were going to loan $445 million and kick in and help them do this project, which I agree Franklin Street would be a good place to fix one of these old buildings, I would hope that the redevelopment commission and the attorney and the accountants would say, okay, we have been down this road many times, many projects. We need to stop going down this road and promising money and then no one building it after they spent our money. I would hope the motion for the redevelopment commission would be, okay, if we got a $3 million project and we're going to give you $445,000, that is whatever, say 10%, I don't know what the number is, that's 10% of your cost. So any bill that you pay, you bring to us, and we'll pay 10% of that bill until we're at $445,000. you're not going to get our $445,000 up front and go through our money first. We're going to pay 10% up to $445,000 because that's what a business would do. A good business would say, okay, I'm in as an investor, as a partner, but you're not using my money first. You're going to use your money, and as you go along, you give us the invoice, and we'll pay 10%, and when we get to $445,000, we're all paid in. And then that puts their skin in the game. So if they do $100,000 work in brickwork or plumbing or electrical, we'll pay 10%. And that's, you're not going to get the $445,000 in the front end. Now, I don't know how the redevelopment works, but we've seen many projects, especially the old memorial site, where we've put hundreds of thousands of dollars and they just walked away. Multiple developers. We took it on the chin, and now we're sitting on nothing.
We can, if we go back, we're now on YouTube. Navigate News and Views is our YouTube address.
Navigate News and Views.
Navigate News.
Have a channel.
We had Jim Pressel on I believe it was our first show.
You can watch it.
If you go to the YouTube channel and hear the words that came out of his mouth pertaining to the established TIF districts, a state representative specifically said, and I've got information to back this up beside what he said, is the TIF district is a slush fund for the community. And regardless of the individuals that are sitting on the board, if they don't read the law, the specific ins and outs of the distribution of the TIF district revenue, they'll do whatever they please. And what if you have a state representative saying it's a slush fund, and there are other, and I've got written proof to say that it's a slush fund. The Redevelopment Commission, if you watch their meetings and you see in the beginning of the meetings of all of the dollars that they're paying retainers for various attorneys and various designers and engineers and so on, it's a gigantic slush fund, and what they're doing to help the little guy out, they've got a $30,000 facade grant. You know, they'll.
Yeah, but that comes with a lot of strings.
Yeah,
you look at the facade grant. LaPorte has it too. So LaPorte has a downtown district that they pay funds, and our office is in LaPorte, my private office, and we pay a lot of money every year. And they have the facade grant, and they have, I think, a roofing or something, or a painting grant, or something to make it look better. But the strings, I've never asked for it, because the strings that are involved are not worth it in my mind. It's kind of like federal dollars. So he'll give you this, but we'll give you 1 apple, but you got to give us 10 apples. And it doesn't work.
I'm just saying that if you watch the meetings, the transparency of the Redevelopment Commission does not exist. It doesn't provide you details. The only thing it provides you is the end financial results to make the project happen. It doesn't provide you information as to what is going to happen and who is going to be involved. What they're doing is they're just scooping the cream off of the top and saying, well, that's going to cost a 20-year bond issue of X amount of dollars, and that's what we're going to support. They don't tell you what they're supporting. They are telling you the project has a value, and if you want transparency in government, what they should do is be transparent, and they're not.
Well, they do bonds because it keeps the TIF district open. If you don't have any more bonds, by state law, you got to close the TIF district. But as long as you keep making new bonds, it could go on forever. And maybe someday the state will change that. California started TIF districts. California ended TIF districts.
Now, these are basically revenue bonds.
Revenue bonds, yes.
We should explain to the audience what a revenue bond really is. It's the value, the principal value, can either be backed by the Redevelopment Commission, or it can be issued by the Redevelopment Commission. So in some cases, if it's backed by, then the entity that's receiving the principal will be the one that's responsible for collecting the revenues from that project and paying the bond interest and principal. Now, if they're issuing it, then they're going to be responsible generally for collecting the results of whatever project went up in the funds that evolved from that project.
Yeah, like 11th Street, that's a revenue bond backed by the developer. They're issuing it, but the developer collects the money and pays it back.
Right.
But if you built a new city hall, the redevelopment commission would create that bond and they would pay it off because it's their bond. The revenue coming through their district would pay off the city hall.
Well, my question there would be, why would we issue a revenue bond that's going to be a little more interest? Why don't we just issue a government bond? Because if the city is going to own it, then you want the cheapest interest rates you can get.
Well, you have to get the government to let you issue the bond.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's the Treasury paying out now? 5%, 5.5%? So
You're
you're
talking about the U.S. Treasury.
Yeah, the state. The state has a really good, the state auditor has a really good fund that municipalities can borrow from. It's really nice, and also municipalities can put money in and get tax revenue off of. So they're backing your bond with your future redevelopment funds or whatever revenue funds you have. So we would pay them back, and I think the interest rate's pretty high, which is another, in my lifespan, another chess match or play that you do is you get bonds, and I'm not saying it's bad, but you get a revenue bond for a project, and right now they're probably going to pay, what, 7%?
Yeah.
And then later, and it's going to be a 30-year or 20-year bond, and then if the interest rate goes down, then what they do, which rightfully they should, they refinance the bond at 3%, and they save money, but they extend the bond out. So they are saving money, but they're still in business. They're still in business extending the bond out or paying the bond off early. So it's a good idea, but we got to be careful. Like you said, if we have $1 million a year coming in, and I've said this since the day we got the casino, shouldn't we just save that money and pay for it ourselves? Why would we go to another institution to borrow money at an interest rate and fees to pay something off that we could have just waited 5 years and bought?
Yeah.
To put things into perspective, I don't want to confuse a lot of people with a lot of dollar signs and so on. But of the 5 TIF districts that we have in the city of Michigan City, the Redevelopment Commission, in their spring draw of 2024, received $4,308,000 plus change. If you, again, I've got Form 22, so I haven't got...
Wait. That $4 million that the redevelopment district received would have been money that the city would have received if they had not been there.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
The school, the police, the fire, the paving, the administration, that money would have gone to the city if the TIF district wasn't here.
Now, you take, in this particular Form 22 from the auditor's office, I went there to get my fall draw amount, and they were preoccupied, so they didn't get the facts and figures weren't there for the end of 2024. But the fact of the matter is, if they got $4 million in the spring of 2044, there's a possibility that there may be another $4 million in the fall.
Typically, it'd be about 6%, because people sometimes pay their whole year and they give that money in the front.
Now this is money derived from new construction within the TIF district.
Not just new construction, increased value.
Increased value. So what we have here is we've got this slush fund being operated by a group of people. I don't believe we have an accountant on a redevelopment commission. I don't.
Well, they're hiring the city controller. They're paying the city controller to do the accounting. She's doing a good job.
But isn't there a law firm that represents them?
Yes, they have a private attorney, but they don't have a private CPA or accountant. They use the city controller.
Those funds inevitably will have a bearing on the city of Michigan City if it's not going to their proper use. Utilization of these funds could buy a new fire truck. We don't have to research a bond issue to somebody to buy a new fire. We're in need of a brand new fire truck here in the city of Michigan City. It takes 3 years to make this happen, and it's
Well, fire trucks are basically...
$1 million is cheap for a fire truck nowadays.
Yeah,
Well,
but the fact of the matter is there is a source...
Fire trucks are basically individually built.
Yeah, they are individually built.
Yeah.
But there's a source of funding to pay cash for this fire truck. That's through the Redevelopment Commission.
Yeah, they
Those
can buy
funds can be utilized.
Yes, they could.
They can be utilized for things other than the issue that I brought up, and I'm quiet on that issue because whatever will be, in my mind, will be as far as the school city and their negotiation with the Redevelopment Commission. But the Redevelopment Commission has responsibility not only for new development, but to take some of those funds and contribute to the support of the church, so to speak. But they're not doing it.
So you got a city budget about what, $50 million now?
I thought it was 44, and they only have 27. They only can account for 27 million. That's called deficit spending, people.
Well, it'd be nice to have $5 million that went to the city instead of redevelopment.
Yeah, yeah. Again, and going back to Jim Pressel said, that's a slush fund, and it's been a slush fund for what, 20 years?
And the state's tried and tried and tried to rein it in, and there's too much support.
Too much
locally
slush. Yeah.
That the people, the lobbyists, go up in arms and they scream and yell that if we don't have this money, we won't get any redevelopment. And the money we spend in the redevelopment brings 10 times the amount in increased revenue with other things other than this tax. So they put the pressure on the state reps and state senators and the governor that they don't want this to stop. And the local people have pretty good power. I mean, again, California started TIF districts. California ended TIF districts. They don't work. And we see why. The people that suffer, police, fire, school, roads, administration, all suffer. Because the investment that we're sold on, this $5 million is supposed to be, the investment is supposed to increase tenfold or 20-fold if you put the money in this development like SOLA, and it'll balloon everything and it'll all wash out, but it doesn't, because things like Memorial Hospital happen and we spend money, it goes into a black hole and we don't see anything.
The giant sucking sound.
You should tell them what Memorial Hospital was, because most people...
Oh, the site of 9th and, what is it?
9th and Pine?
9th and Pine.
Which we tore down.
No, Pine and 5th and 6th.
We tore down in
Tore down the
my
Memorial
era.
Hospital.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, 50 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still,
Really?
well, that's why I say
running
it
in the
provides
70s.
grass to
Huh?
graze
It was running in
geese.
the 70s, early 80s.
Memorial?
Yeah,
Memorial's tore down in the early 80s.
early 80s.
Okay.
It was running in the 70s.
And that's when I was on the
All
council.
right.
I remember
1980,
going to that
that's-
hospital.
That's 20 years and
That's about 40-some years ago.
45 years.
Yeah.
35 years.
Yeah, okay.
And we spent a bunch of, we tore it down, we bought it, we tore it down, and then, wait, didn't we do some creative accounting? Like, we bought it and we owned it, and then the city sold it to the redevelopment district to get some money to pay for the police station. And then we put a bunch of money into the site because somebody was going to come, somebody just like Sola, not as big, and then they backed out, and somebody else came and they backed out, and now if you drive by there, it's a bunch of, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of infrastructure just sitting there. And honestly, if you're not using infrastructure, it's rotting, it's failing, it's depleting.
When you're talking about infrastructure, you're
Sewer,
talking
water,
sewer.
gas, all sitting in there. If you're not using it, it's not good for you.
I made reference, I made a comment on this show in years past, or in weeks past, or months past, about people living off the trough. How many people on the Redevelopment Commission have been living off of the trough for the last 20, 30 years, 40 years?
The people on the Development Commission, I don't think get paid very much money. It's a tiny amount.
No.
But the people that are doing the work for them, you would hope they would give us projects that come to fruition instead of projects just
But I haven't seen that progress.
go and go and go and go.
Now, I'm going back in history because I remember 1970 and 71 and 72 and 73 and so on and so forth with urban renewal. Urban renewal was totally unsuccessful. You have to give these people credit
Just call it what it
for
was.
at least
A
being
failure.
All right, failure.
Complete failure.
These people took it over and have turned it into a success. Whether you like it or not, you don't like the way they do things. At least they have been successful. If you look at the North End, if you look at Franklin Street, it is so much better than when it was under that urban renewal crud. I almost said the wrong thing.
Yeah, they spent the money to tear that out. Now, I agree, there is a lot of success. But back to the first point, yes, there's a lot of success. But at what cost?
Correct.
Did it really need to cost 10 million? Did you need to spend 10 or 20 or 100 million dollars on success that could have cost you 5 because of your administrative rules and your meetings and your bonding and your funding? The answer is no. So we keep doing this. We need to get more efficient.
Well, if they have extra money, we want to use it for a number of these projects. Now,
Look
if
at
we can-
Pullman, right? What a mess that was. They tore that down and we got a Lighthouse Mall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's,
did we clean up what's underneath? That's the question.
I don't want to ask.
that solar project, the ground was broken 2 years ago on that solar project, and something was going to materialize. The fact of the matter is, during those 2 years, the redevelopment commission was getting roughly, they got what, 400,000 in the spring of 24. They got about 800,000 in the spring of 4 million, and then they got about 8 million in the spring of 23. And a percentage of that money went to develop that project that still hasn't developed anything but a chain link fence. And they do cut the grass. Redevelopment Commission cuts the grass. But again, based on financing, I wish them well. I hope they can obtain financing
I
on
think
this.
they have a shot now because I think it got delayed because interest rates went from 3% to 7%. And the commercial market is decimated. The commercial market is, you can't get a dime out of the bank for a commercial. They are plummeted in value, 40, 50, 60% in value. These banks are hedging money like they've never seen in the commercial market. I don't know what'll happen.
And the redevelopment commission is funding a bond issue for that solar property.
And that means we, as the redevelopment commission, as Michigan City, are on the hook
Correct.
if they walk away like Memorial.
That is
I hope
correct.
it doesn't happen, but we will have to pick up the cost to do this.
We got to start writing better contracts.
I agree. That's why I started that. If this, I think it was at 7th Street and Franklin, and they were going to rehab that building, and I thought it was $3 million. And I was fine if it's $445,000 to help them or whatever the amount is, as long as they only pay the percentage of the match while they work on it. Don't take our money. And this is how some nefarious developers work, and this is the industry I work in. Some, they come to municipalities, not Michigan City, any municipality, and they come to you and they say, hey, we'd like to work on redevelopment or a new building in your town, and we think it's going to cost $10 million. And the city or the municipality says, great, $10 million, we'd like to have that in our town, and we would like you to help us pay for it. Okay, we would be willing to help you, say 20%, which is $2 million. And they say, oh great, well, we'd like to have you give us $2 million for a $10 million project. But what they're not telling you is, it's not a $10 million project. It's a $5 million project. But they just got you on the hook for $2 million, and they only got to spend $3 million. They juiced up the prices to get you to give a higher amount as a percentage when they know the cost was only half or 30%, 70%. And then at the end of the project, everyone's happy because it got built, but they don't tell you, hey, we only spent $5 million, even though a year and a half ago we told you $10 million, and you gave us $2 million. Because that's what they're in business to do. They're private business. That's the way they work, and they're trying to cut any dollar they can get. And if they can cut their costs down by either 10 or 20%, they're not going to come back to the city and say, hey, we cut 20% out of this $10 million project. It only costs us $8, so we're going to give you 20% of your $2 million back. Never going to happen.
I've got a question pertaining to artificial intelligence and bookkeeping and so on. And when an annual financial report is due at the end of the year,
Well, that report was due in April,
that was due in April,
and they
it just
posted-
materialized?
and they posted it in December.
They're six months behind?
Yeah.
Don't you think AI would help, possibly, if it was run properly, arrive at a conclusion? What was the conclusion of this report, Tony? Any idea?
What was the conclusion? The NICD lost $10 million.
Well,
Okay, so the
wait a minute.
the finance report for
I only
NICD
got 2
is
seconds.
NICD is out. You can go
I
on the
only
state
got 2
auditor
seconds to
site.
look
You
at
can
this.
download it. It's very long. It hurts my brain to
Well,
look
their
at.
operating loss was 68 million, but in federal money, in state money, and in a number of other situations, they got $58 million. So as a result of that, their loss before their capital contribution was 10 million. I
So-
mean, it's nice when the federal government gives you money and the state government gives
So
you.
it's a business that's not working. Where they brought in $9 million in revenue, and they had to pay out, what, $58 million in
Well, they paid 53 million before depreciation.
53 million?
Yeah, before
So
depreciation.
without
and
the
amortization.
state, the federal government, and the RDA, the Regional Development Authority, which I am still proud, let me tell you, I am still 100% proud that LaPorte County did not take the money we got from the lease of the toll road and give it to the RDA. We stayed out of that because they're getting this money from Lake County and Porter County to keep NICD running because they're not, they tell you their numbers are down, their ridership is way down, it's not coming back. They say that in the report. I've been waiting for this report all last year. The latest I've ever seen them do this report is August. They waited till mid-December to make this public. Now, they gave it to their finance people who reviewed the report, make sure it was legitimate. They gave that to them in April, but they held on to it until December because, and I knew as long as you hold on to this, the worse this report is. They do not want to release this.
This report was for December 31, 2023. Nothing about 2024?
No, they're supposed to release that by April in 2025.
Say it.
They have to do their last year, and it takes them a while to get all the numbers together. I think they
A year and a half?
No, 2025 for 2024.
Oh, well,
But this one waited till December of 2024 for 2023.
was there one released from 2023 to 2022?
Yes. And that was done in August of 2023.
And what
And I think they
What
had
was
lost.
determined?
I think they had lost $5 million that year.
so a track record of losing $5 million each year?
So we knew that their cash revenue was going to be tough, and I believe that NICD even said that they're using capital funds for operating expenses. This is not going to turn out well.
Yeah, their cash and cash equivalents went down by 6.5 million from year to year, which is one of the things you always look at.
This situation is untenable.
Oh yeah, eventually it'll go back.
Eventually, this cannot continue unless the ridership somehow explodes back because it's not back. I believe they say they're 53% still down.
And the real problem with this is we've got a lot on the north end of Pending.
Oh yeah, that's exactly why I brought it.
Yeah.
If this is not a viable and functioning business, what is the North End? We've all been promised this.
And how much money of redevelopment funds have been invested in this specific project, that if this project falls on its face or continues to lose money?
I don't think they'll ever let it stop.
No,
I was
no.
gonna say,
But
they're not gonna let it stop.
They're going to have to continue to subsidize. Who's going to subsidize?
Yeah, exactly. That was my thinking, that the Biden administration was very heavy in the rail, and they were waiting for the election because they know if Trump gets in, they're probably not getting this money. Now they have to double back and try to figure out, what are we going to do? Because that money's not coming anymore. And that was a lot of money in this report.
Oh yeah.
A lot of federal money. Just like Amtrak.
No,
We're getting down to the last
wait
5
a
minutes,
second, I'll tell
gentlemen.
you how much.
Start of the new year, we've got just a lot of simplistic issues to talk about. Because what's money? You know, what's
$1 million here, $1 million there,
what's
pretty much.
it? It don't matter. You
Well,
know?
off the top.
Talk about real money.
But again, if you fall behind on your property tax, I'll tell you what, your property, the house that you've lived in for 20 or 30 years, and because of an uncomfortable situation, you might have not been able to pay your assessed valuation. What is it? They put it up for tax sale for the little guy.
Go to the treasurer, work out a payment plan.
Yeah.
Please don't not pay your taxes.
Yeah, you have to pay your tax.
You have to pay your taxes.
I'm just saying there's two sides to this world: the wealthy side and the side living on a teeter-totter, so to speak.
So if you want to watch our shows, we have Navigate News and Views as a YouTube channel. You can go there, go to YouTube, type in Navigate News and Views, and you should bring up the YouTube channel.
And there are facts there are printed facts to back up everything we talk about. We just don't dream this stuff up. Or do you dream it up, Tony?
I hope not. I like to sleep in and not dream.
I do. I want to feel comfortable tonight as well.
Hey, in my age, if I dream it up, I just plead in a.
We have an accountant sitting at the end of the ledger over
That
there,
was his Christmas present to
and he
go over their financial
he has
report.
done some research, and he's comfortable with looking at reports. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Bob, do you feel not comfortable with the comments that come out of your mouth based on the facts that you have in front of you?
No, I feel the problem we've got is management. And you hire professionals, architects, builders, these kind of people. The problem is that managing a project is a real,
Takes talent.
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to manage a project, and we've got to find the kinds of people who are project managers.
Yes. The leadership.
Yeah.
There was the park department had a walkway coming through the city of Michigan City, and because of specific guidelines, this particular walkway needed to be insured, specifically insured. I would think that the blanket agreement insuring the entire Michigan City would cover this walkway, but because of rules and regulations, this walkway, this particular trail, had to spend an additional $50,000 or $60,000 additional insurance over and above the blanket contract of the city of Michigan City so that this walkway could continue through Michigan City. That doesn't make sense to me.
Just one of the federal strings you get when you take federal money.
Yeah.
Grants sound good.
Yeah.
But you start digging into the strings.
Yeah.
You don't want no part of it.
So the city since this trail is going through Michigan City.
But wait a minute, let me also put this in
Very
there.
quick.
It is better than taking the money, thinking that you have done the right things, and then finding out you haven't after you've spent something like $200,000. Now, we have somewhat of a history of that. So having the people in there to show you what to do.
Read the fine print.
And this history that you're talking about, in my opinion, has been implemented in Michigan City for the last 50 years, and it hasn't changed.
All right. Been fun.
We're down to the last minute. Bob?
Happy New Year.
Happy
I think
New
I'm
Year.
more optimistic than these guys are.
Anthony?
Happy New Year. It's going to be a fun ride.
And again, Happy New Year to everybody. I want to thank everybody for watching. Your input as to improvements or criticism of this program is greatly appreciated. Please contact show's co-producers Bob Pollock, Dave Bila, or Tony Hendricks with your comments. You can email Bob at skrpollock@gmail.com, Dave at djbila1@hotmail.com, or Tony at email@yahoo.com, or you may direct your ideas for any future shows to our one and only staff writer, Sarah Bellum. The showing of our program will be Saturday morning at 10 a.m., also Monday evening and Thursday evening at 7 p.m. on Channel 99. You may also watch 24 hours a day to this fantastic program called Navigate News and Views on Yahoo at yahoo.com. I want to thank everybody for watching, and make it a good day.